So hi, welcome to Anchor Reviews. This is Tyler from Anchor Reviews.
And Steven Lawson, aka the Big Steve, on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
So anyway, the reason why the audio is like this is because we traveled all the way to Transylvania to see this new Dracula movie, which is called Dracula: A Love Tale, over in its native land, but over here in the States, it's called just Dracula itself. So anyway, I kind of forgot this Dracula movie was in development until it recently came out, and I saw the trailer about a week or two before this came out. So I had interest to see this movie, and then I told Steven about this one. Were you aware of this one at all, or?
Honestly, I had no idea this was even a thing. I think in retrospect, maybe at some point I saw like an article or something, or like a trailer skipped on a YouTube video at some point about this. But other than that, I had no idea. So I'm glad you were more attuned to it being out than I was.
Yeah, so anyway, this Dracula movie is what makes it interesting is that it is directed and I believe also produced by Luc Besson. So Luc Besson is best known for directing movies such as Leon the Professional, also just known as Professional, The Fifth Element, and Lucy. And those movies have been successful, of course, in the past. Not so much Valeridian, the City of a Thousand Planets, or Anna necessarily. However, personally, I think Lucy is an overrated film. I do think his other movie called Anna that came out much later, that was a box office failure. I actually think that's an underrated and pretty solid movie. I would definitely recommend checking it out.
Is that the one about like the teenage girl that was like maybe I'm misquoting, but like CIA related in some way.
Yeah, so she was a Russian recruited by the KGB,
Yeah.
and then there's also some people in the CIA who want her knowledge or whatever. And that's been a long time since I watched the movie, but I definitely recommend it.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember who plays Anna in that one, but there also the movie stars Luke Evans and Killian Murphy, and I think Helen Mirren was in it too. But anyway, I definitely recommend checking that one out. So with this Dracula movie, so this time we have Dracula's played by Caleb Landry Jones, and he is, of course, the historical Vlad Dracula, the Impaler character from the Middle Ages, well, late Middle Ages, early Renaissance. And his wife dies, who is played by Zoe Blue, and he then decides he's going to, renounce God because he feel like God, was supposed to protect her, and she died. So he ends up becoming undead as a vampire. So throughout the centuries, he tries to find the woman that he once loved, and then eventually finds a contemporary version of her named Mina in the present day time. Oddly enough, it's not in England, it's actually in France this time because it makes sense because the director of this movie is French in that. We also have Christoph Waltz as the priest character. He's kind of like the Professor Van Helsing in this movie. So, what'd you think of Dracula or Dracula: A Love Tale?
Honestly, I enjoyed it pretty well. There were definitely some problems I think we'll discuss about it. In terms of, at least for me, like maybe you're more forgiving, Tyler, because you are so averse in the sort of classic universal monster sort of mythology, and so like paving over certain things that need to be retread, even though this is another take on it. Um, Kind of bugged me that it was just like, don't question it. He's just a vampire, and this is stuff he can do, even though we're not really showing you how any of this happened. That I thought was a weird choice that happened in several regards. And you mentioned AI was somehow involved in this movie, which, as someone that is an aspiring artist myself, I have a whole lot of thoughts that are probably not very nice. But in general, other than like these gargoyle characters, to me, it wasn't super noticeable unless it was just like background enhancements or something like we were talking about. But also their choice for Dracula. They sure chose an ugly guy. That's for sure. Like I can see you kind of pointed out to me while we were watching it. There's a little bit of a common look to. I almost said Hugh Grant. Good grief. No.
I mean, if Hugh Grant was in this movie, your mom would definitely show up with us.
Absolutely, absolutely. No. uh, Commissioner Gordon in the Nolan Batman movies. Why am I forgetting his name?
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman. Yes, there is something in his performance, especially later on, that's a little Gary Oldmanish, and like how he carries himself. And I like a change that happens at the end that we may or may not talk about because it's kind of like, I guess, the one difference from most other versions I've seen. But like when he when he first graced the screen, it was like looking at a wet turd covered in fur. It just like this is one of those actors where I'm like, you don't want to be too like, oh, they don't look good enough to be in films or TV, but like, man, if that isn't a case of you know a guy who knows a guy, I don't know what it is, because he is, if he wasn't where he is now, he would be working, I don't know, a gas station, unloading trucks, an extra in the cast of like Ozarks, in the trailer park area.
Yeah, yeah, no, I was thinking like, well, have you ever seen what Ella Fanning or Ellie Fanning, trying to pronounce her name, Ellie Fanning's boyfriend looks like?
Yes,
Guys, we're not ugly. We're just poor.
it's true. Yeah, he just stumbled into, okay, I guess, because the thing I've seen him consciously in is Get Out. I don't know if he's been in much other stuff,
Well,
but
he was Banshee in X Men First Class,
that's true. He was also Banshee in First Class, but
aka the best X Men movie ever made.
true. I agree. I agree. Fight me. I'll.
I'll back you up on
Yes.
that.
But no, I agree. He's like, he carried it, especially in the, I would say, the second half, his role, and there was a lot kind of in comparison to the Nosferatu film. Like, you can tell that there's a lot of commonality, which is not a coincidence, of course, but I think that they did a decent job of making it its own thing. Um, and the female love interest did a pretty good job too. I thought, I was worried kind of in the first half she was going to just be like generic, ooh, woo, I'm infatuated, which gets very. I don't know how girls can watch that and relate, because that to me is very one note. But fortunately, she did better in the. They gave her room to be a little more in the second half, and I enjoyed it. Most of my issues were basically logistical questions that they almost seemed to poke fun at a little bit through the Christoph Waltz character, in terms of like, uh, garlic is not that effective, I don't think, and things like that, were just, they kind of steamroll past bits of the vampirism, and you question how we got here, other than emo boy is sad and somehow like God is mad at him. But for what it was, I enjoyed it. It was a good time. What did you think, Tyler?
All right. So anyway, I got to a lot to respond to. You're mentioning things. So it was true that, well, we're watching the movie, but I didn't mention this in the video yet. But yeah, AI was used in this movie to expand the environments and help those details out. Imagine for budgetary reasons. However, when it came to the gargoyles, from I saw from behind the scenes, feature online, it was actually people in motion capture. So there were real people in motion capture for the gargoyles. And I gotta say that this is the closest thing we're gonna get to a gargoyles movie.
Yeah, unless it's literally just AI posted to YouTube or something. But
But and there's a spoiler here, but I just gotta mention it because I want to start to the gargoyles. So one of the weirdest and most awkward things, which does happen in this movie, because it's a French film, and that of course there's gonna be some weird whimsical things about it, regardless. So the thing is that there's a moment in the movie where the gargoyles, it's never established how these gargoyles came to life, right? Maybe it was a deleted scene. And then for some reason, the gargoyles, towards the end of the movie, they turn into these little boys in loincloths painted white, like they're, the one of the henchmen in like Mad Max Fury Road.
right,
And I'm like, did they just exit the island or something?
they did. The Epstein bus just dropped them off. It looked like it was really like, what timing, and We're just pulling this completely out of nowhere. Okay.
Yeah, that was strange. And then also, I guess this version of Dracula, instead of hypnotizing people, he created like the ultimate like love potion or fragrance where he went throughout various continents with the various flowers or whatever it was, fragrances. And I'm like, this is basically what Poison Ivy did in Batman Robin to get people like all worked up in that.
Yes, he developed the super cologne called Riz.
Good one. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there were moments where they're like the moments when they were dancing, I know it was supposed to be like, very French in a way, but I don't know, it kind of borderlined on like a Bollywood movie.
I can see what you're talking about. Somehow, though, like if I heard this and hadn't seen the movie and I heard dances Frenchly, I would just imagine like with like a bunch of baguettes. Like I don't know what French dancing looks like without seeing it. But you're right. It was a very sort of flamboyant, and they also had some really indulgent, gross imagery, which
Oh yeah, when the you're talking about the French aristocrat scene.
yeah, but it kind of worked in contrast to the vampirism in a weird way, where it was like, yeah, actually, rich people can be really gross with like a vomitorium and like smearing nasty stuff on each other because they don't like abide social cues since no one tells them no, and that can be contrasted with literally just biting people's necks and sucking blood.
I wonder where that was in the history books. But yeah, it's like I'm watching this, and I'm like, this is how Robespierre saw like the French aristocrats, I guess in his viewpoint. But then real life, they're just probably like just look how successful they are. And then he just wrote his envy out in the French Revolution. But the thing was that with what you were saying earlier about this Dracula, so I gotta admit, when we first saw Dracula, at least this Vlad version of the character in the past, yeah, it just felt like he was miscast in that part. But later on, as he kind of changed into this hair color and even with various mustaches and with the accent, I kind of won me over a bit. I just felt
Yeah,
like the look he had in the beginning of the movie, when his origin 1400s, it just wasn't working for me.
agreed.
In fact, there are some odd things here and there costume wise. For example, we have this priest that blesses Vlad Dracula's on his side, and he's the one he ends up killing after his wife dies and that. But the priest they chose was basically like a Catholic priest. But over in that country, it's Greek Orthodox is what the version of Christianity that is practiced over there, not Catholicism. As I know, it's a common thing in a lot of Dracula movies. They typically show like the cross with Jesus on it, but even though it's a different type of cross without Jesus on it, with the various lines through the cross that are part of the Greek Orthodox tradition. In fact, in addition to that, we're just seeing the armor on the people and then seeing what the opposing Turkish armor, not armor, but the side look like. I don't want to sound mean or anything with the director, but this came off as like a Timu version of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, no, there were definitely like you could tell other than the armor, I think the armor like at least the few pairs that we saw come to think of it because there weren't even that many. They did a good job like making them look very draconic. But they did make the generic Muslim army that was attacking look very shall we say ISIS-y, but with like Robin Hood crossbows.
Well, I mean, people in recent years have been figuring out that the Crusades were justified. I mean, they constantly were trying to invade Europe, and the Turks actually did hold Eastern Europe hostage for hundreds of years until the 1800s. If you look at history itself, and Vlad was actually someone who was trying to stop the Ottoman invasion into Europe when they're going into that. But the thing is, like, I made this video not that long ago about the difference between Dracula Untold and the real Vlad Dracula, about how a lot of the horror stories you would hear were actually printed from Germany, from Germans, and there's a lot of German merchants in the area, and they cracked down their corrupt practices, and thus they made up these stories to vilify him, which goes to show how history tends to be written by the winners. But the thing with that moment when we see him having the second scene his tent in that, I was just thinking to myself, like, Dracula Untold, but with a fraction of the budget.
Yeah, I can see what you mean about
Yeah,
the budget thing for sure.
yeah, it's funny how like Dracula Untold was made like 12 years ago. Well, technically 11 for this movie because it was released into the public last year. But it's funny how that movie, I don't know how much this movie cost, but that movie, Dracula Untold, looked much better, especially with the color palette and the lighting is way much better than this one, at least in, my opinion. But the thing is, like, Tremor's getting at too with it. But yeah, I did like how they did have this Vlad Dracula change. I feel like how they could have got around the character looking like the way he did in that movie was just give him a mustache. I think
Sure.
that would have boosted things up a bit. I mean, some would argue that facial hair is like the push-up bra for men.
There's definitely some truth to that. And with the actor choice that they have, he could have just looked even more, like a unwashed muskrat than he did, except for the Victorian stuff. He cleaned up a bit
Oh yeah.
in the Victorian stuff.
Speaking of casting and stuff and that, I mean, this movie was showing about people being reincarnated throughout the years and throughout the ages and that. I was kind of disappointed this movie ended when it did because I wanted to see Christoph Waltz's character come reincarnated as a guy also in France searching for certain people in the occupied territory.
Oh no.
Yeah, that'd be funny if this is like a prequel to that movie.
That would be pretty a funny twist.
My head canon says so. Yeah, but anyway, back to other like cast members too. But before that, I wanted to mention Christoph Waltz. He's a good actor, to put it lightly. And I think nowadays, like you were saying about Chris Pine, I think he's also underutilized these days.
Absolutely. I was going to say that of anyone in this film that I would like to see more of, he needs to be. I mean, he's not unpopular, but he needs to be in more things better and acknowledged way more often.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd much rather see him more often than some other actors who are not that good at their job and are pretty insufferable with their bad hot takes on certain things.
Yeah, at best, if not just like not talented at all, and somehow are just like promoted due to influencer culture or something.
Oh yeah, definitely. With the actresses of this movie, so I did like both of them. That would be Zoe Blue as both Elizabeta and Mina, as well as Matilda de Angelis, I think is pronounced her name, as Maria. So with Zoe in this movie, I mean she's pretty in that. I think her acting was pretty good in this thing too. Just like I would say, all the cast were pretty solid in terms of performances. However, I remember you were mentioning about how she had like these strange eyebrows and that.
Serious eyebrows. Those are not part-time eyebrows. Those are full-time eyebrows.
I mean, those eyebrows look like they're trying to reach out to each other, like the Sistine Chapel painting.
Yes. Yeah, the painting you can just like feel and get actual hair on your hands feeling the painting.
I mean, yeah, she's pretty in that. I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
trying
No,
to like
absolutely. No.
make fun of that sort of deal in that, but
It's just to keep you humble, we're
I
none of
know,
us are perfect. Yeah.
I know. But also, when they're showing that one actress who played the kind of the Lucy character with the red hair and the fangs and that, basically
Right.
acting like an OnlyFans chick.
Or one of the vampire countesses in Van Helsing, like you were
Yeah,
pointing
yeah,
out.
I was getting to that. She looked like Anna, sorry, Elaine Anya, her character from Van Helsing, Alara, I think her name was. Yeah, so basically that character, because she had the same hair color, similar facial features, and similar personality too, as well. So it was just like thinking about that, and also too, I remember when Christoph Waltz character was like, like who we call or whatever in that, and I'm like, when they knock in whoever it was, who was the the fiance of Maria's character, of the Maria character, it was like they should just knock on Hugh Jackman's door.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I was actually gonna play here for a second, but I there was a scene in the movie where the Van Helsing esque character Christoph Waltz was implying, and I know someone I think I can help, and I was just waiting for da 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 da
Yeah,
the
and
Ride Through Transylvania theme.
oh yeah, there's a moment too where there's like carriage riding in the forest and that. I'm thinking to myself like, imagine if they had to stop at like a four-way stop or whatever, and we see like the flaming carriage from Van Helsing driving by as the Wolfman's on top of it.
That's good. Yeah.
What was that? Like what?
Yeah, there's just a whole nother Dracula story like a couple of blocks away in another castle. That would be hilarious. Oh,
Yeah.
that's my cousin.
But then again, there were like a lot of paintings of Dracula throughout the years in that, which I did like. I liked the different Dracula paintings were in a way kind of nods to other Dracula depictions of movies. Like I
Uh-huh.
saw one that looked kind of looked like Bela Lugosi, another one looked like Christopher Lee. I think one kind of looked like a cross between the Luke Evans one from Dracula Untold, but also the Dracula from the Castlevania video games.
Yeah. I didn't see Blackula though, which was very offensive to me. I was waiting for that.
Oh, I thought you wanted Gerard Butler from Dracula 2000.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep forgetting he was Dracula, which is weird.
That is a weird thing to know.
And the Phantom of the Opera too.
That weirdly worked out. I'm not going to question it, but still, it
Yeah, I do remember what's his name who played Night Owl and Watchmen was in it too, and Emmy Rosen was pretty cute in that movie too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I was gonna get at too, but I think we're gonna kind of get into the spoiler section of this movie. Kind of spoiled a little bit. One thing we had to bring
Sure.
up like an elf in the room about the like questionable thing with the gargoyles. But anyways, so with towards the end of this movie, I do like how Christoph Waltz's character is like, we're not trying, to kill you. We're actually trying to save you, and that we all have our own choices in life. That you can't just blame God for everything. That we all have our own personal accountability to take upon ourselves.
In
And
Destiny, yeah.
yeah, and I did like that how in the end he chooses to be selfless and is like, this woman right here, she may look like my wife hundreds of years ago, but I needed to really just move on and not, curse her like I am. So he ends up, sacrificing himself at the end, letting, this character kill him.
Yeah, I agree that in general it was a noble sacrifice and I think it was the right thing to do. And in terms of like the message of the story, I think it was a good unique take to kind of make Dracula be the savior for once. That was very interesting to me. But I also was thinking to myself, like, man, she is not going to be good with the fiance who looks like an Adrian Brody double from Timu, like you were saying. Um,
Well, not from
like,
Timu, but yeah, I think you were
yeah,
saying it was a discount Adrian Brody.
discount Adrian Brody, but like, yeah, just she was straight fiending like the woman from Nosferatu was, where it's like, "I'll die without you," and then like he just dies, and clearly second place shows up, and I'm like, this is not going to go well. Like, fortunately, they just don't show it, so it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
we move past the logistics of, well, this is a crap show that has been left behind, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, I will say that Zoe is cuter than Lily Rose Depp, at least in my opinion.
oh, absolutely,
At least, well, in that movie, Lily definitely had like this gigantic forehead.
five head, yeah,
Got that dopey sized forehead.
mega mind looking daughter, yeah,
Speaking of Disney references, now I was watching this pretty subpar movie called The Wrecking Crew,
uh huh.
and just seeing how old like Dave Bautista got, I'm like, man, he's got those giant Dumbo ears.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an aging thing for some people, but the sort of, ear fat flopping out.
Yeah, no. I mean, he could probably hide some stuff in his like ear holes too. How big they were too. Like,
Oh boy.
he's probably gonna find us.
Yeah.
Be all full character as Drax if he does it. Yeah. All right. So before we wrap it up, I wanted to mention another positive thing I'll say about it is that I thought the action in this movie was fairly decent because I'm sorry, I'm kind of tripping on my words right now. Like I'm trying to be hypnotized by Dracula's fragrance, but I will say the action is pretty solid in this movie. I will say that because the director of this movie knows how to do action. If you've seen his previous movies like Leon the Professional or The Fifth Element, I haven't seen Le Femme Nikita, but I did hear good things about that action movie being pretty solid as well. Believe it or not, he once married to Mila Jokovic.
The one that
Luke,
was
no, no,
in
Luke Besson. the director of this movie once was
Yeah.
married to Mila Jokovic at one point.
Mila Jokovic is in the one who is going to be in that terrible Taken esque.
You gotta be more specific than that. She's in most of her movies are just action films that are pretty subpar.
Right, but I mean the one that literally was the last trailer before the movie, uh, featuring my ex-wife. Like, uh, or am I thinking of the wrong person?
Wait, ex-wife?
In the Resident Evil things,
Which actress was?
it was that movie Protector.
I know the Protector, but you're saying like ex. Your ex.
Isn't that the?
Yeah, yeah, the Protector. That's the name of the movie. If I like ex-wife, what other actress are you talking about?
Well, I thought you were saying they were together at some point.
No, no. Oh, the director's ex-wife.
Yes.
I thought you said my ex-wife, the ex-wife.
No.
Because I thought you were referring to it like an
No.
ex-wife.
No.
All right,
No.
never mind. Never
Sorry, I
mind.
didn't mean to go get into like postal territory there. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's I don't know that movie. We both just were like, oh, like this is the most
Generic.
generic. What if it's Liam Neeson but a woman protecting her daughter? Like,
Oh
okay,
yeah, Mila Jokovic in an action film. Wow, that's really defined stereotype right there.
yes.
I mean, can you imagine if she was actually in like a drama, compelling drama, or some kind of romantic comedy? That would actually be something refreshing.
I think our heads would explode. So maybe it's for the best. But
Yeah, really. But yeah, she was in another movie that came out recently. It didn't get much advertising. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but this thing is called World Ender or World Bender. I forget what the exact title because Luke Evans
oh
was in it. But oh yeah, I remember Stephen also wanted to mention too the fact that during the whole montage of kind of the soft core date that Dracula and Mina go on, it was basically this awkward moment where they're showing like how to shoot a gun in that.
yeah, or the book talk Gooner session that they just had with like them going at it in the middle of the war. But yeah, just oh look, let's set up a nice pillow and shoot it in the middle of our room. Like very romantic activity, shootings sponsored or this romantic film sponsored by the NRA. Get your gun license and registration today.
Or how they're like slobbering like food in the face, like smothering each other with food.
Yeah, yeah. They thought it was cute, and they're like, "Guys, you're 30. Like, it's time to get dressed and like go outside and touch grass, please."
Yeah, I think I would have cut that from the montage. But you're also mentioning too, like the bed that they returned to after like all those hundreds of years later. That would have had a certain other special element from Dracula on there after all these centuries.
Yes, there is no way when all the down bad bro had to go off of was like the scent of her in a dress and on the bedding. This man would have been like pulling it big time. We'll just leave it at that.
Speaking of that, there's a part in the story where the basically the Lucy like character, that's not her name in the movie, but basically it's Lucy, that type of character where she's all chained up and Christoph Waltz's character is, doing an inspection of her and that. And I'm like, so this is finally done. The exorcism of Sabrina Carpenter.
Yes.
Anyway, so what would you give this movie?
So thinking about it, at first when I was watching it, I was thinking like, yeah, this is probably like mid '80s ish movie, but by the end and like some of the questions I was raised that were never really answered, and then sort of there were kind of just like subpar aspects to the production. I think that's a bit too high, but it was still solid overall. Like I'm not saying personally rush out to theaters to see this, but like it's worth a watch if you like Dracula, you like love stories, and I would say this is worth your time more than probably a bunch of other things like that god awful like Disney Pixar movie about like Avatar but for animals that
Oh, Hoppers.
hoppers that's being pushed right now. That I was just like, yeah, I'd rather see this over something like that any day. So, with all that in mind, I would probably give it somewhere in the area of like 77 to a 78%. So it's like it's pretty good. There are problems that like you're gonna notice and aren't answered, and there's not really even a way to answer it. And I guess you could say some minor pacing issues, but all in all, it was a decent time. What would you think, or what did you think though, Tyler? What would you say?
So personally, there are definitely things about this movie where it's like, yeah, it's definitely trying to be like Bram Stoker's Dracula, maybe a tad bit like Dracula Untold with some of the action moments, and of course the first 15 minutes or so of the movie. But those movies are definitely better than this one. In fact, Christoph Waltz was in another monster-related movie recently with Frankenstein, the Guillermo del Toro movie, and that was definitely better than this one. But
True.
I'm not trying to put this movie down too much because I did enjoy this movie, generally speaking, in terms of what it did with it. I mean, yeah, the beginning part I feel like could have been better, especially with the look of Dracula in that movie. But I think the voice was spot down with that one. Oh, sorry, spot on with it.
Uh-huh.
And also, I did like the technical aspects of this movie with trying to be like a love story throughout the ages to kind of explore like Dracula throughout the centuries from his time as the Prince of Wallachia all the way to the 1800s. I did like how we did see that part. And oddly enough, I don't. I think it probably won't happen, but I had my own pitch or idea for a Dracula movie if I made one. It was kind of similar to this. Like, what if Dracula's cursed to be a vampire because he was betrayed by the Boyars and vows to never find no peace until he avenges his death and kills all of the Boyars that betrayed him and all their descendants throughout the years, and throughout the centuries trying to have been hunting them down, and then suddenly he finds a woman that looks like his wife, happens to be the daughter of the last in line, so technically she's like actually a descendant of one of the boyars that betrayed him from centuries ago. That's kind of like my idea, but then again, this would be very similar to this movie in a way. But I
Yeah.
did enjoy the performances, generally speaking. I did like some of the technical aspects here and there, minus some moments where I could tell the budget was tight, or they got the priest wrong with the type of Christianity in the area. Overall, I did enjoy this Dracula movie, generally speaking, here and there. I mean, with the gargoyles, it definitely reminded me of the Beauty and the Beast movie from the 2010s, not the Emma Watson version. That's a really
Oh,
bad live action remake. I'm talking about there's this one with um, Leah Seydoux that also was also a French production as well, and it reminded me of that. So just kind of given when it comes to French productions like this to be a little bit more whimsical with their fantasy elements with it. So I would give Dracula a Love Tale about 2.5 stars out of 4.
yeah, that sounds roughly in the ballpark for me too. Talking about like future or like other ideas for Dracula stories. I don't know. Part of me wants to see something creative that's more in the sort of like Daybreakers or like you could do something really interesting with like commentary about COVID, which would be edgy for people, where it's like, what if actually like Dracula or the Dracula family is still around trying to turn everyone into vampires? I think there's cool sci-fi like story elements where you could definitely utilize Dracula in the contemporary or different takes you could do on it. But something tells me that we'll just get War of the Worlds with Ice Cube watching everything on his work laptop. So it's going to be like Dracula, but he's on an incel forum for Reddit and doing like terrorism. Like that's the best we're going to get, which is, I'm not looking forward to that. So I'm enjoying things that have effort for the time being.
Oh yeah, definitely. As well as movie theaters actually being around and that before they all just get put to streaming services.
True.
All right. So this is Tyler from Anchor Reviews. I hope you enjoyed this video of After the Credits on Anchor Reviews. And also, to keep in mind, one thing I want to mention really quickly is that speaking of Dracula related stuff, if you want to read more about Dracula movies, then check out my book, 100 Years of Universal Monster Movies. Anyway, I'll let Steven respond.
Yeah, read it or I'll come to your house. No, that that's I'm just kidding, but that's I agree. It's a, I can vouch for it. Good book and good man who knows his stuff. Just to sign off, I'm Steven Lawson, aka the Big Steve, on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
And we hope you enjoy this episode after the credits on Anchor Reviews, and we hope to make a lot more in the future. Please like and subscribe.